All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Um, Ever since the ruling of the Caribbean Court of Justice handed down on Wednesday last, I think, I've not formally addressed you, but I believe the ruling of the Caribbean Court of Justice is quite clear. It's pellucid, requires no gloss. Uh, and the reason I'm starting out by saying that is because there have been several naked attempts to misconstrue the clarity and the very simple judgment that was handed down by the Caribbean Court of Justice. Importantly, that decision of the Caribbean Court of Justice did not in any way, shape or form, howsoever or whatsoever, impugn the order of the recount order numbered 60 of 2020. However, what that decision did was reject attempts by Eslyn David, as was made in the Court of Appeal and further at the Caribbean Court of Justice, to amend the Constitution or attempt to amend the Constitution by way of that order. That specifically was rejected by the Caribbean Court of Justice. Now, that decision also pronounced on valid votes and the necessity or otherwise to include that word, as was attempted by the Court of Appeal here in Article 177(2) of the Constitution. Now, as is also public knowledge by now, the Court of Appeal, the Court of Appeal's decision was struck down by the Caribbean Court of Justice. That being said, the CEO's report dated the 13th of June 2020 included a report which pronounced on total valid votes. That report is now a matter of public notoriety, and the matrices that he was required by the order to tabulate accurately reflected the entirety of the numbers generated by the recount. However, we would all recall his attempted jiggery-pokery in his summation of the observation reports, where he made his first attempt to discount a large number of votes. But that being said, between the 13th of June and the 16th of June, the Commission met and deliberated and came to a decision on the 16th of June that the numbers that will be utilized for the preparation of the report by the CEO, as is contemplated by Section 96 of the Representation of the People Act, would be the numbers used by the numbers produced by the recount, the total valid votes as produced by the recount. You'd also recall that by the time the CEO got around to producing that report, we were faced with court proceedings. And immediately after the Court of Appeal ruled the following day, I think the Court of Appeal ruled on the 22nd, on the 23rd, the CEO produced a report which disenfranchised 115,000 odd valid voters. On what basis? He claimed in his cover letter that he was relying on the judgment of the Court of Appeal. At that time, the judgment of the Court of Appeal, at least the written judgment, was not available, and I believe what might have been barely available was the order from the Court of Appeal, which made no reference to the purported action by the Chief Elections Officer. It is now public knowledge that the Caribbean Court of Justice struck down the report of the CEO, and as a consequence, that decision having been handed down on Wednesday, on Thursday, the chairman wrote to the CEO requesting that he produces a report using the tabulation certificates for the purposes of a report of Section 96 of the Representation of the People Act. In that letter as well, the chairman reminded the CEO of Section 18 of the Act 15 of 2000, which makes him subject to the direction and control of the commission. He is a creature of the commission. He is subject to the dictates of the commission. He doesn't act on his own. He's not entitled to acting on his own according to the law. Now, as you've also heard earlier today, I've seen many of you have already posted a letter under the hand of the CEO in which he sought clarity. But importantly, the letter, while purporting to seek clarity, made findings. The CEO made findings on matters extraneous to his task. If you look at paragraph 2 of that letter, you will see that he purports to make findings, and I don't know what vests him with the authority or wherewithal to do that. And I believe that it is very clear what he was required to do. The conjoined effect of the Order 60 of 2020, which refers specifically in paragraph 12, I believe 12 or 14, to what must be used or what should form the basis of the report pursuant to section 96. All of that was done. And the clarity as is provided by the Caribbean Court of Justice in the judgment also ought to have been useful. And mind you, it was very clear what the Caribbean Court of Justice had to say in that regard. But the CEO nevertheless needed guidance. It was a decision the chairman wrote to him, providing clarity and requesting that he provides that report as is contemplated by 11 o'clock tomorrow, and our meeting is adjourned to 11 o'clock tomorrow.
Do you think that the order had all the legal elements that could have compelled the CEO to give a report using the certification that came out of the GECOM? Because we seem to have heard different from your fellow commissioner.
I believe that the Order 60 of 2020, yes it does, and it is not only the order that provided that. You recall that after the CEO provided his report, pursuant to I believe section paragraph 12 or 13 of that order, what we also did, we discussed it in depth, and the commission made a decision which he had to act pursuant to. So all of that was made very, very clear to him, and as a consequence, it is now unfortunate, to say the least, that the CEO has chosen to act in this regard.
If a report is not submitted tomorrow, if further clarity is sought or a similar report is submitted as was done on the 23rd, what is the next step?
I don't want to pronounce on that at this point. I would be lying if I told you that I do not contemplate certain further steps. But like I said earlier on, the law dictates that the CEO is a creature of the commission. And if he fails to carry out the lawful instructions of the commission, obviously that has to be met with consequences. And there are a raft of consequences which can flow from that.
Like what consequences?
If you're an employer and the employment laws cater for that, as are several employment practices, if you fail to carry out, like I said, there are many disciplinary actions that can be taken. What must be borne in mind here is that the nation is waiting for these results, and we have been waiting. It did not escape the attention of the judges of the Caribbean Court of Justice. They said it in the beginning of their judgment, they said it at the end, that it did not escape their attention that we have been waiting in excess of 4 months for these results. And it is, the wait has been punctuated by several acts of shenanigans.
Even if he's seeking clarity, the commission should take a stance against his employment.
He has sought clarity, and he has received clarity, and I believe it is now. I would have acted differently, but he has received that clarity, and I expect him to act properly now.
The commissioners had a chance to interface with the CEO at today's meeting, right?
Yes, they did.
So you had a chance to ask him questions about what his letter and so on.
Yes, we did.
And were your questions satisfied? Did he satisfy your?
In my opening statement, I mentioned that particularly paragraph 2 in this letter that purported to seek clarity, the CEO was making declarations. He was making findings as to what Order 67 and what Order 60 could have done and how it could not have been executed. While you may want to be charitable to him and give him the benefit of the doubt in relation to seeking clarity as a good employee, etc., you can't come under the guise of seeking clarity and then make pronouncements as though you're a court.
And did you tell him that?
I did,
you
of
put that to
course.
him, and did he have a response to that?
He did not respond, but of course I would not miss an opportunity so to do.
Are there any expectations of tomorrow when you're supposed to meet back here at 12 and you're supposed to
11 o'clock tomorrow.
Yeah.
There are expectations of today. This nation has expectations of this commission that a declaration would be made. The nation waited patiently for 30 odd days as we executed a recount process, right? And you know what? The CCJ has made it extremely clear what validity of votes deal with, how the law treats with it, and more importantly, the CCJ speaks as to how these matters of these allegations ought to be treated. But I don't know why the relevant persons are not paying due regard to that. Thank you.